Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Targrud.
Good morning, everyone. Madison's here as well.
I am here.
It's 2 in a row.
2 in a row.
It's like 3. I don't think I've missed this season. Have I? I've missed a bonus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You bonus on Friday.
Yeah.
In the past 2 Fridays.
Yeah, no, good to have the gang here. If you're wondering why we chuckled at the beginning there, I said something before we hit recording that appeared
it's when it started recording. You'll be able to hear it.
I don't know, man. Can we just trim that a little bit? I hope so.
We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it leads us nicely into the thank you that I give to our Substack founding members at the start of each episode. Those are... Really? You think...
Do it.
Des Windsor, McGlinty, Matt Moritz, Pullman, Joey Gawler, Kemin, MJ, Mats, Luke Villano, Raul Escobar, Jack, Carlo Fassi, Nasser, Merlin, Flinker, Derek Favretto, Heavenly 13, Mike Schulz, JT Physio, Tourette, Marco Velea, and Roberto Racinos. Had room for about 10 more there. Not going to lie.
That was shockingly impressive.
Thank you. Been working on my lung capacity since I came down with the flu the other week. So
it's like 4 days ago.
That was a stomach bug that followed on after. It's not been a good household for illnesses recently, to be honest. But anyway, boys, we're here. International break's done. We've got a game to recap. We've got a couple of games to preview because Champions League action returns this week too. Substack. I've actually got to talk about what we did over on the Substack in the past week. So, start with a bonus podcast that me and you did on Friday, AJ. It was based on a report that said that Milan are going to focus on signing players domestically, Italian players specifically, because from a squad list point of view, we are not in good shape given who might leave. And we went through some of the names in each position that we could sign who could be good backups or could even challenge for a starting spot. But we also spoke about some of the difficulties that come with negotiating with clubs within Italy. Isaac's newsletter, hit reset and hope for the best about literally that, how the international break could provide a chance to just start again in terms of building momentum after what was a difficult period leading up to that. The bonus article that he did was about the idea of building a shared stadium with Inter, some of the pros and cons that come with it. Talks about things like the naming rights, the difficulties that come in having to share certain decisions with them, but also sharing costs. So that there's the positive from that standpoint that we're not taking on all the load of that. That is well worth a read. Breaks down some of the figures and things like that too. Go check out the Substack. Try week 3. More good stuff to come on that in the week now, especially now games are back underway. Speaking of which, Udinese at home Saturday evening. So I was reading before this game that we've won 2 of our last 7 home games against Udinese, and they'd won 2 at our place in the same time period. So it hasn't been a good fixture for us, this one, to be honest.
No.
And after 30 minutes of this game, you'd be forgiven for thinking it was heading a similar way. But we got to start with what came before the game. More specifically on Friday night, when news emerged from the sources that report on the lineups that Leao was going to be left out of the team, straight up benched, basically. He played a cameo off the bench against Scotland for Portugal in the second game of the international break. So it's not like he was tired, not like he arrived with 180 minutes under his belt, like Reijnders had far more playing time. But yeah, that was one of 5 changes to the lineup. He decided to alter the centre-back pairing. Pavlovic and Chiao who took the field because Gabbia was injured and Tomori was dropped. Terracciano got the nod at left back. And then we had Chukwueze on the right, Pulisic down the middle, and Leao was dropped for Okafor on the left. Morata led the line. Thoughts on the Leao decision and on the team that Fonseca played?
I thought it was strange. It was odd. I couldn't tell if he was doing it because he wanted to punish them because of the issue prior to the international break with the penalties. But I don't know.
Was Leao part of that, though?
Part of that? No, he wasn't. At least not on the surface. So I don't know. It was weird. It definitely seemed like he was punishing Leao for something. The post-match comments were odd as well.
Can I interject and say that it was speculated that the reason he might be punishing him is because Leao said after a game he had with Portugal that he feels the trust of the coach and the rest of the players, and the Italian media, as they did, interpreted this as a dig at Fonseca, saying that like he feels trusted under Martinez but not at club level. Now I think that is a massive reach.
Yeah.
Wait, what did he say?
I can find the words exactly, but he said along the lines of that when he's with the Portuguese national team, he feels the trust of the coach and of his teammates. But he was like asked a question along those lines, like, "How do you feel when you're with the national team?" What was he meant to say? I don't like the coach and I don't like my teammates. It wasn't mentioned once. I can't find it, but yeah. It was two together and make 5 there, in my opinion.
So if that was the punishment, then it's stupid because I feel like you ask him first, like, "Hey, I read these comments in the media. Is this what you meant?" Or like you could have a conversation. He's your player, and if he doesn't respond to you, then assume the worst. But I feel like Leao would be like, "No, they just asked me how I feel about my national team coach, and I said I trust him." That's a normal thing to do as a player. Like you said, what do they want him to do in the interview? He's not going to slag off his team, so yeah, that makes sense. Weird to be punished for that. I thought it was weird that he never came on, especially given that he was fairly well rested when he returned, and he could have made a big help, especially given the circumstances of the game. However, I do think a part of that is why he stayed off. Being a man down, the idea was clearly to be more defensive, which we all had our different opinions on in the chat, and it probably in Fonseca's mind made more sense to get more defensive and hold on to the lead than bring on another forward. So, there's that, which does make sense. Obviously, it almost backfired at the last second there. So glad it didn't. But yeah, it was strange team selection to me. I think you play him regardless.
For the purposes of being accurate, I will read this quote out. He said to Ebola, and this was after the game against Scotland, so the second game that they played. The coach asked me to get in deep and to get one-on-one and do the best I can. Basically, play my game and create opportunities. They, Scotland, were a very compact team. We had little space, and the coach wanted me to make movements in deep and without the ball. How do I feel at the highest level? When I'm here with Portugal, I feel everyone's support. The coach also has a lot of faith in me, and this is fundamental for my game. So what came out from Milan about that is that they were absolutely not alarmed by the comments. Understandable. Like, why would you be? It would be a bigger headline if he'd said something different than that. If he turned around and said, "Oh,
if he mentioned the club at all."
Yeah.
He
like
didn't say anything relative to it.
I do not know what way he was meant to answer that question in order. But we're at this point now with Leao, and I think it probably extends to Milan in general because other players have made comments that the media have run away with, where every single word is being analysed and they're putting words in between. They're trying to read between lines that are not there, And I think it's stupid. I think it's daft. I'm glad the club, sort of clarified and said that we, don't see anything wrong with this at all. And I honestly think Fonseca is the same. I don't feel that that it was a punitive punishment move in any way. Also, I know his comments after the game were a little bit weird, but I think they were also taken a bit out of context, where he's kind of saying, it should be normal to see a star player on the bench, because his whole point was about workload management, and I did get some information that Leao only trained in the gym on the Thursday before the game. Therefore, his only training session prior to the Udinese game was on the Friday, and that was a finishing session, so it's a bit lighter in terms of load anyway, and it's more about preparation, like watching film and stuff. So maybe he genuinely wasn't fit enough to start the game, or maybe he was fit enough, but if he's at 80%, Fonseca's looking at it like, well, we got Bruges on Tuesday. We've got to win that. Okafor's fresh. He's been here through the entire game. Chukwueze came back early. Pulisic came back early. So, yeah, I think he just weighed it up and was like, this is the best move for the team, especially in view of the other games, because as much as he said in the press, we got to take things game by game. I won't rotate. I think it's important to keep things like this. You can't help but look at the fact we've got 7 games in 21 days, and some tough ones at that. So I think he made a move that has been massively blown out of proportion, to be honest.
Also, our last manager didn't rotate at all. Right.
And then when he did, it was always like 12, like 11.
The entire line.
And out of the 11. Yeah.
And so, like, when you drop a few players, everyone's like, what's going on? Why is he doing this? He's doing tactical things that are going to support the team in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer lies in the fact that we're recording this podcast on Monday because we have Club Brugge on Tuesday. Like, yeah, well, it's as simple as that.
Hours.
Yeah, and given that we've lost every game in the Champions League thus far, kind of need to get some points. So, maybe not risking your star players makes sense, because Tammy Abraham came on and was subbed off injured in 5 minutes. Like, it's always a risk when you play a game. That was brutal. When they're showing the replay and you just hear the scream in the background, that was nasty.
I thought that was my son waking up from a nap.
One of them, yeah.
Someone with a broken shoulder.
But Lorenzo says that it's no big deal, So.
Yeah, don't worry, guys.
Yeah.
He didn't train today, but it was no big deal. So.
Yeah, I think he'll be a couple of weeks out. He'll be sore, but it's not like an ACL or whatever. Yeah.
So, if you just do it in the park, it's different than doing it on a field, right? Or is it the same thing? Lorenzo, let us know in the comments.
In the park? I feel like those are the same thing, right?
On a soccer pitch?
Yeah.
Lorenzo was probably like tripping over a stick or something.
He's walking still. Where are we? Yeah, so the game started well. We instantly created a couple of chances down the left side with Okafor getting behind Ehisibue. Ehisibue, that's a tough name to say, but I'll try my best with it. Who is their right wing back? Got in behind first time, didn't really come to anything. Second time it did. He did very, very well to stay on his feet after a challenge that was coming from behind him. Played it inside to Pulisic, who rolled it over to Chukwueze. Lovely goal. He hasn't started much this season, Chukwueze. Had a really good pre-season. He hasn't been great off the bench, let's be honest. But I always think it's hard to get into a rhythm as a winger when, you might think you're building up some momentum, but you're just not getting a starting spot while Pooley is playing the way that he is. But I was really happy for him to get this goal. And it was a 20-yard tap-in. Is that right, AJ?
Every goal's a tap-in when you think about it, huh?
Yeah, but no, it was a nice finish, and it was a nice team goal, a nice team move to prove that we can move the ball quickly. And look, we know what Udinese are. We know what they've been for like over a decade. It's a 3-5-2 team that are going to settle into more of a 5-4-1 when they're not on the ball, and we have found it really, really hard to break them down in years gone by. Aside from, I guess, when we beat them 4-2 at home, and we beat them in a dramatic one last season where we scored 3 times, beat them 3-2. But they've tended to be tight games because of that. And they'd had that start to the season where it's a bit of a free hit for them. So I thought we need to be prepared for this to be a difficult game, and we're going to have to be patient, and set pieces might be important. But to score a nice flowing goal 13 minutes in just calmed everybody down a little bit. And yeah, Chukwueze's celebration was full of emotion. I noticed that. He jumped up in the air and screamed and punched down towards the floor. So that's good. And he's meant to keep his starting spot tomorrow against Bruges, which we'll come on to. But good for Chuck.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone's not happy for him, right? I think everyone's pretty thrilled.
Well, Libya must be pretty gutted after trying to keep him hostage for the last week or so.
I did think about that when he scored. I was like, what a comeback.
Yeah. From hostage to hero.
There you go. There you go.
Nah,
demonetized.
No.
Well, if the intro doesn't get us,
would come after us. The government are coming for us there. So yeah, then there was that, and then I guess the the next major incident, it forced Udinese to kind of change their game plan, come on the front foot a little bit more. They played very direct to Lorenzo Luca, who, he's 6'7". You know, him and Pavlovic had a real battle, which was good to see. And I'm kind of glad we played the centre-back pairing that we did in retrospect, because we knew they were going to cross anyway. And even before what happened in the 30th minute, which was a red card that Daniele Cifi gave for what he judged to be a last man challenge from Tijani Reijnders on Lovric, the Udinese midfielder. Not convinced.
Not
I
at all.
still have not seen an angle or a video slow enough to see any contact. I see the Udinese player hit his own heel with his other foot and go down, and Tija's nowhere near him. And I don't understand how it wasn't called on the field, right? Or no, it was.
It was called.
It was a little delayed.
Delayed, though. He gave himself a few seconds to think about it.
Yeah, which is probably the right thing to do. From his angle, when you look at that, you go, was there contact there? I don't know. I'll just call it, and then we review it, and if it's not there, they call it off. But then they didn't call it off. I don't understand how the VAR booth could not see that there was zero contact. I mean,
I
saw
thought
the
he
angle 20
touched
times.
his back slightly, and I was like, "What is this real? Is he really being red carded for this?" I haven't gone back to look for a replay, but it looked incredibly soft.
Yeah, I still don't believe there was any contact, genuinely. And
Yeah,
if someone could prove otherwise, that's fine. If it was a red, it was a red. But from what I saw, I don't think it was. I thought it was soft. I thought Terciano deserved a red for one of his challenges. That he only got a yellow. It was the one where he
is that
went
the one where
through.
He dived in?
Yeah,
It was a little bit reckless.
It was reckless. His legs were high. Studs were not up, so there's that, I guess. But his legs were definitely pretty high. They were like almost knee level. So
what saved him with that was that he pulled his boots in,
Yeah.
He almost right at the last minute just pulled out of the tackle. It's kind of like the Pavlovic one inside the box where Udinese players were screaming that he got him with the follow through. I thought that was going to be given, but that's more because of the standards of it. They normally give that, but there is a thing about making a genuine play for the ball. He didn't get it, but I think he pulls back with his follow through, and that's what saves him rather than staying with his legs out and completely cleaning him out. He sort of it's incidental contact, you could argue, and I think that's what maybe saves Terciano from a red as well, because it was a pretty reckless dive in. Was that?
Right before the VAR for the Pavlovic one, it looked like we should have got one in the Udinese box, right?
There was
happened.
Thinking about keep thinking about the Chukwueze one where he gets stamped on. Oh my god!
Oh yeah,
how on earth was that not a red?
That was crazy. Yeah, and you could see when he stamps on him, he steps on him, and then you watch his foot raise slightly and then go back down on it a second time.
Puts his body weight through it. That must really hurt. That's how you break metatarsals.
Exactly. So that was crazy. That should have been a red right there. And then the two goals that they scored that were both called offside for millimeters. I mean, look in the current rule, those are offside. So it is what it is. It's the right call. If they were to change the rule to the way I want it, to where it's a bit more subjective, to where you could use your better judgment and just use common sense, was it affecting the play? Both of those would have been goals, in my opinion. So, we got away with it there. But yeah, this was some of the worst refereeing I'd ever seen in a game.
It was horrible
on both sides.
The ref made the game about him. That's what the game was.
He always does. He always does. I think he's a dreadful referee, to be honest. And I always wince when I see that we've been assigned him. To be honest,
I remember
he makes it all about him.
There was a Roma game. I don't know when it was, but where Mourinho was the manager, and to avoid talking to Cifi, he sat on the bench with a headset and was just talking to his team in there, because he just knew. He's like, "Oh, Cifi, this is not the guy."
Yeah. If you've got a referee where their reputation precedes them, and there's quite a few of them in Italy, then you've just got to question what's going on. It was not good, and I feel sorry for Reijnders. I know you've got a Terracciano agenda, and having watched that red card back, you can question where he is in that particular moment because he's nowhere to be seen, and Reijnders has to follow the man back. He isn't used to being in those situations. Like it shouldn't be like that. One thing I will say is, I think that referees are more likely to give it when you've got a player going through and they're being pursued by somebody, and they do that thing where they go from one side of them, and this is only for the video watchers, and with their arms up, they go over to the other side of them, and it like skims across the back or whatever, and then the player throws themselves to the floor because it just looks like Reijnders has lost him. It just looks like he's having to make a desperate move to get to the other side of him. And I'm not saying it was the right decision at all. It's just when you see that happen, you tend to see a decision made. What would have happened if he'd have just tried to outpace him round the side? We'll never know. But look, we're not. I don't think we're going to challenge it. And I think he'll therefore have to miss the Bologna game, which is a shame because obviously he's an absolute starter in this team. But yeah. And then Milan uploaded the photo on Instagram yesterday of Teo and Reijnders hugging. It's like, what were you expecting in the replies, man? Red card bros and shit like that. But yeah, that made things very difficult for us. Man down with over 60 minutes to play, knowing there was added time to come. But this is where my pride in the performance comes out, really, because I believe Udinese had one shot on target.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
One that registered because obviously they had two but disallowed goals, so those don't count as shots on target. They put us under pressure. They just got the ball wide and loaded it into the box time after time. But the two centre-backs, the midfield, the forwards that pressed from the front, and Maignan commanded his area well, barring a couple of flaps at crosses. It was just like, as Fonseca said after the game, if anybody had doubts about the unity of the team, then there you go. Because they fought, they really dug in, they stayed organised, they stayed disciplined. Would have liked us maybe to offer a little bit more threat on the counter, but I think there was an acknowledgement of like where we were at in the game. I think Tammy was brought on to do that, and then he goes down after a few seconds. So you just then stick to defending what you have, and we did exactly that. We defended what we had, you know. And I was proud. I was really, really happy with that. We've struggled for clean sheets all season. In fact, it dates back way before that because of the amount we conceded last season. And to not concede a goal playing a man down for over 60 minutes, I don't care who the opponent is. I'm happy. Happy.
I am too.
Good.
Yeah, I wish we would have won by more, you know.
You berated us for a lack of attacking intent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to phrase my emotion towards the game because it was a frustrating game to watch, obviously because of the refereeing, right? Because of nothing that Milan did. I don't think Milan did anything wrong. I personally don't think they should have set on it as much as they did. It invited too much pressure and ultimately led to that offside goal at the last second that we all in that moment were just pissed. Like we all felt like shit as soon as that goal went in because of how close it was. Everyone said, yeah, that's a goal. Like, and then the high of it getting called off, and I jumped, you know, I was excited. So a lot of emotions in a game against a team that ultimately you shouldn't, you know, it should be pretty straightforward, but this is just the team for us that always causes problems. And that's why it's so frustrating because it's like, yeah, we were so dominant in those opening, 13, 20 minutes for the goal, all the way up until the red card, that I feel like had we have just actually the entire first half, even after the red card, because we didn't make a change until halftime, but had we have just made that sub of Musa for Okafor at halftime like we did, and just continue to play like we just pretend we weren't a man down, you know, just keep going because it's not like at that point you're missing just an attacker, right? If you take off Okafor, you put on Musa, you have all your midfielders, you have all your defenders. You could play the normal game. You just have one less wing option. Just have the two wingers go a bit wide. Have Pulisic move up a little bit more. I know everything's easier said than done, but I felt like it was overly cautious to a fault. That it invited problems. That the second half was so dangerous to watch. Like it was just constantly, okay, they're crossing, and yeah, they couldn't get shots off because they're just a shitty team, but they were crossing the
I
ball
think
in
it
our
comes
box
with the nature of
nonstop.
being a man down.
Yeah, of course, 100%. But also, it's the idea that once you're a man down, regardless of what position you go down, you have to just sit back and defend, because we resolved the issue. We put on another midfielder. It's not like we lost our center back and didn't have an option and everyone had to sit back. That makes sense. We lost a midfielder. Yes, our best one. Fofana deserves all his flowers, by the way. He really stepped up.
Yeah.
But Musa replaced Reijnders just fine. I thought Musa did well as also, and that explains why Leao didn't come on, and that's good with me. But then why are we instructing them? And it was very clear instruction. Everyone behind the ball, like everyone just wait back, and I don't think that was necessary. I think we could have just kept playing it like it was a normal game. How many times do we play games anyways where it feels like we're a man down up front anyways, you know? So that was the
That's
last
2
3
years.
seasons. Like it's not even that big of a deal. But
My
it is
my
what it is.
counter,
We won. So
we did, yeah, we did. So it was the right move, clearly. My counterpoint to that would be that we can't keep the ball with 11 men. So going down to 10 men, we're going to struggle even more. But no, you are right from a numbers point of view. Like as soon as you sub that midfielder on, you've still got your 4 and your 4. But you just got 1 instead of 2 up front, if that's what you want to do. Doesn't really change anything about how you would, construct the team out of possession or anything like that. But it does open up more space, and it does allow the other team to keep the ball a bit more. We are lucky that Udinese they tried nothing other than just pumping crosses into the box. I'd love to know how many there were in that second half, but it felt like at least 30 crosses came into the box. And they're also lucky because Luca's a big guy. They also brought on Keenan Davis. They made 4 subs in 10 minutes. Did Udinese. They brought on more size and more speed, and I thought, ooh, this could be a problem because they're going to get the pace into the wide areas to try stretch the 2 fullbacks, and they're going to have size in the box, and this might be where we concede. But we stayed relatively composed. They didn't have anything that brilliant for us, to be honest. Would it have been different against a better opponent? Perhaps, but I don't know, man. It's one of those where, like you say, the agony and the ecstasy as well with the 95th minute goal where it goes in and then it gets overturned in that way, and it literally is a matter of centimeters. He's a toe or 2 offside, and it was the right call. I've had people go at me in my mentions saying this isn't how you should want the game, and it's like, but that's not what we're talking about.
yeah,
we can talk about changing the offside law. That's a separate discussion to whether by the current regulations this was offside, and it was offside. So yeah, the agony to the ecstasy.
It's
comes
not
to
like we're the first team to benefit from a very close offside call either.
No,
We've also been on the receiving end of
been on
those.
the victim.
Like
Kessie against
every
Napoli.
team has. Every team. Yeah, that one is actually bullshit, and I'll die on that hill.
Yeah.
I was thinking of the Chukwueze ones last season where it was like a loincloth. Like it was so thin.
Yeah.
But, one other incident I want to talk about, and I can't remember who the defender was, but there was, I think it was actually on the first offside goal. It might have been. Pavlovic gets headbutt. I mean, he's bleeding. There's clear contact. But when they show the replay, the guy who hits him, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was.
I thought it was Luca who headbutted him.
I think it was. Yeah. So he headbutts him, and I'm watching live, and he says, "I was playing the ball. I was playing the ball."
No one.
Then you watch the replay. The ball has not been kicked yet. It's still in midfield when he does it. So, the movement that he made was playing the ball, but there was no ball. It was way away. So I don't understand how that could be anything but a deliberate red card for violent conduct. Like that was, to me, that was clear as day. But they were reviewing the offside instead, so I don't think anyone was paying attention to it.
Yeah, it's back to just
the
ref calling a terrible game.
Yeah. 100%. Well, yes, but I also think that I said this at the time in the chat. When that goal goes in, because you then see the replay where Luka takes Pavlovic out of the game with his action. You can say he's going for the ball or whatever. It was an honest play. It wasn't. But, let's say it was. Let's say the ball was near. Even if it was, you have taken one of our defenders out of the game, not got the ball, it's head-on-head contact, so it's a head injury. But I hope that even if he was onside, they were going to pull that back one more and look at that incident and disallow it for a foul. But yeah, it gave some good photos of him bleeding from the head. Bit of yap stam about it.
You know what's crazy is, so yesterday, the day after our game, I don't know what the incident was, but De Ligt was also gushing blood from his head. They posted the exact same photo, and Manchester United used the exact same caption. And I don't know if it was intentional, but it was damn near word for word. And I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. It was crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, we saw it out. 3 important points. And it did feel like that because, Milan won Udinese 0 doesn't sound like anything really. But behind the scoreline, there's so much more to it.
There's a lot more.
Fight for so long against what we perceive to be refereeing injustice again. For Chukwueze to get a goal, which was important, keep a clean sheet, important to show the kind of hunger, fight, unity, everything that we've been questioning about the team is good. And I think you saw that at full time. The reaction was, I won't say over the top, but like it was more than just a typical run of the mill win like the Lecce or the Verona or the Venezia home games where it's like, players just walk onto the field. It's a job done. With this, it was like they wanted to go over and celebrate with the fans, who were excellent, by the way. The Curva did a protest. We won't go into it because it's all a bit of a mess on that front at the moment. But for the last 10 minutes, Martino was actually at the game. I'm not sure if you saw that.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, but he was at the game. Got some.
Wait, why was he on Twitter then? I saw him tweeting.
I believe you were tweeting him at halftime. Is that right? you had an exchange of words with him at halftime. I'm surprised you got signal in there. It's normally a graveyard.
I never have signal there.
Reception. Yeah, bizarre. But last 10 minutes, the Curva really turned it up, and they got the whole crowd singing, and it was like, again, siege mentality. It shouldn't be like this. We should be the one putting teams under siege, but the circumstances dictated it that way. The atmosphere was fantastic, and I just think it's one of those wins where taking the opponent out of it with the context, it just means that a little bit more. And I hope that we use it as a launching pad and it galvanizes the team together. On to Tuesday's game. Oh, shit, tops and flops. Top, gimme Fofana.
I'm going to go Pulisic. I think his assist was very selfless, and I think the rest of his game was fantastic, whereas I think Chukwueze didn't do as well outside of his one moment, which was the goal. So obviously, he's a good pick as well, but I'm going with the Christian.
I'm also going to go with Pulisic, who had more defensive actions than Terracciano.
Who is AJ's flop?
Did you see on Terracciano's Instagram?
Yeah.
Posted the photo and Pulisic replied like, "I'll cover your other flank" or something like that.
I'll cover the second post.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. Good banter. Good banter from him. Flop's a tough one because, well, it is for me anyway. Because I don't feel like anybody needs dragging after this performance. Everybody did their bit. I think pretty much everybody was a 6 out of 10 minimum. I guess some people would say Reijnders for finding himself in that position, but we can't say that the red card was unjust and then point the finger at him and say, you cost us the game. Might give it RLC just for butchering that pass to make it 2-0 at the end.
Yeah, that pass to Musa was just dreadful. And it looked like such a simple pass. I don't know how it ended up where it did.
Yeah, he hit the man somehow. Just hold it or hit it in front of him. No, but RLC alternated in his brief cameo doing something really useful with something really bad. So it was that pass, but then there was that thing where he held off a man, held off 2 blokes, and then won that free kick down in the corner towards the end, and everyone's going like, "Yes, we're fucking nearly there." And then for whatever reason, he tries to dribble it into the box. No, Ruben, you're undoing everything you've done.
We had a corner with, I think it was 7 minutes left in the game. And
it was longer.
We tried to hold it in the corner. I was like, you're not going to hold it for 10 minutes. What are we doing? It's never going to happen. And then they had a counter that luckily ended in just a cross. But then we went back the second time with no time left. And he does that. And it's like, guys, what? Yeah,
Go
he's
backwards.
an interesting dude, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to pick Reijnders, even though I think that is probably by definition the correct answer. But I'm not gonna do it. I'm going to pick. I thought about picking Tammy because that basically was a wasted sub. We just lost a sub in a window on that one. But
And an injury.
yeah, and he got injured because he whiffed the fuck out of a ball that should have been a tap in. That should have actually been the tap in,
Yeah.
And so, Tammy's an honorable mention, but I'm gonna just go Terracciano. He played the full game, and I wasn't happy with him.
Terracciano's stats were actually not bad.
I'm sure,
but stats also don't tell a game. I'm going to go Tammy because somehow he dislocated his shoulder by tipping over. So,
yeah, I mean, it sounded incredibly painful, and
yeah.
I hope he makes it. I mean, it's one of those things where you're in pain for a while, and then it just gets popped in, and I don't know how it would feel after it gets popped back in, but I imagine not particularly great.
Yeah, that's the part that hurts the most.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Never happened.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
scraping on each other.
He's having a scan today, so we'll see if he's done anything more.
They said there was no fracture or anything like that. So.
Yeah, which is important because it can be a collarbone, it can be a
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, hopefully no you can do nerve damage or tissue damage and stuff like that. Hopefully it's all okay. Yeah, let's move on then to Bruges. Bruges. We need a win here because we've lost our first 2 games in the Champions League, but we've spoken at length about the way the schedule works already. 2 tough games. This game, which is a bit more accessible on paper, shall we say. Then we got Real Madrid away, and then we've got 4, again, easier games on paper. But this is only our starting point for the Champions League campaign if it turns into 3 points. And Club Brugge are an interesting team, shall we say. Last season, because the way that the league works in Belgium is they have like an initial league phase, and then the league splits in half. So the top, I believe it's like the top 6 or the top 8, go into a playoff to determine the champions, and then there's a relegation playoff as well. So they finished 4th in the first part of the season.
Conference League playoff.
Yeah,
7th.
They got to the Conference League semis last season and lost to Fiorentina. So they lost by a goal to Fiorentina on aggregate. So they're not a terrible team. But anyway, they finished 4th in this league phase, sacked their manager after that because obviously it's Club Brugge. They should be challenging for the title. And then they won the Champions playoff phase unbeaten, won 7 out of 10 games. So yeah, they ended up being the champions despite finishing 4th. That's how the league works in Belgium. And
how does 25% of their teams get relegated? That's crazy.
Pretty rough, that. Or did they go into the playoff to be relegated?
I thought it was a relegation playoff.
It's
be a playoff. Yeah.
Ignore me. I don't know how to read.
Yeah. Relegation qualification, as they call it. What a fun thing to qualify for.
Maybe they should just make Serie A like that.
It would be interesting.
Yeah, just rope about 8
Inter would win every season. Well, they're already doing that, but
yeah. So yeah, the manager that they hired to replace Ronnie Dylier, those who follow English football will remember him as a failed manager over here, is Nicky Hayen, who is 44 years of age. He's managed a load of teams before, but he's also managed Haverford West County in Wales. So weird coaching path for him. But he came in, won the league, they kept him in. They're currently, I've got them as 4th in the Belgian Pro League. They've had a bit of a stuttering start to the season. They drew, lost, and lost in their first 3 games, then won 4 in a row, then lost, drew, and they won their most recent game. So, based on last season, that's sackable form. And then in the Champions League, they lost 3-0 at home to Borussia Dortmund in the first game, but that doesn't tell the full story because it was 0-0 after 76 minutes, and then Dortmund scored 3 goals late on to just knock them out. And then they won 1-0 away at Sturm Graz in the last round with a 23rd minute goal from Solis, who's a summer signing. So they're 3 points above us in the table. Can't argue with that.
What you can't argue with, though, is their form. Their last 6 games, they've only won 2. One of them was that against Sturm Graz. Bonus points to anyone who knows what country they're from. No one?
Austria. I only
No.
know that because a Huddersfield player went there.
Oh, okay.
God
Well,
bless
I
Jimmy
didn't know.
Frank Stankovic.
The other win was against Westerlo, who had a red card and currently sit 8th in their table. Okay, not as bad as I thought. But the other thing is they've lost to Ghent, the team directly above them. And after the game with us, they play Anderlecht. So they can't be thinking that they're, winning the Champions League, right? So what are they going to weigh more heavily? Are they going to say, well, we already have some points. We sit back in this one and try to make sure that we qualify to win the Belgian league again by focusing on Anderlecht? I don't know how they prioritize their season, to be honest. I know they're 11 games in, and I don't know how long this table phase lasts. So that'll be interesting to see. But this should be a win, right? There's no reason that we
definitely
should
be
be
a
able
win.
to do it. Whether there's outside circumstances or not, even the best version of Club Brugge should not be able to beat this Milan.
An underperforming Milan. Like there is, I don't want to be disrespectful. I know you don't mind being disrespectful. Like they are here on merit, I suppose. I say that every time because you're like, no, fuck the opponent. I'm like, this is our easiest game on paper. I think no, maybe
It's one
Red
up for
Star
sure.
at home. Yeah, like it's there. It has to be 3 points. Like we should be able to perform averagely, even underperform a bit, and their best performance shouldn't beat us. That sounds incredibly arrogant.
And everyone should be fired up for this game too when they remember that this is the club that robbed us for CDK. And
shit, yeah. And they want to rob us for Skov Olsen, who is not playing. He's out with a muscle injury, so we won't get a look at him. Do you know who's in net for them, by the way?
I
Simon
don't know who that
Mignolet.
is. Oh shit!
Oh wow.
Ex-Liverpool, yeah. The player that I really like
Is he the one who got concussed in the Champions League final?
in that Karius.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no, did he
you're
get
right.
concussed and Karius came on? I can't remember.
I
but
genuinely don't know.
he screams early Klopp era to me. Does Mignolet?
Yeah.
Yeah. The player I really like from Bruges is left back Maxime de Kuiper. He's now a full Belgium international. We were linked with him actually during the last week as a potential deputy to Teo. He scored against Italy in the Nations League. That's why I like him. And yeah, Skov Olsen, who's arguably their main threat, is out. Also, this is I guess just how it works in Belgium, but summer 2023, they signed this guy called Igor Thiago from Ludogorets. Banged in a load of goals for them last season. They sold him for 33 million to Brentford. He's their Tony replacement. So they lost their best player there. And Nusa, the winger, he was talked about getting a big move for a while. He's gone to RB Leipzig. So they got 50 mil combined for them, I think, maybe more. And they spent on 5-6 mil signings. So I think they're arguably a weaker squad too without the two main men. Team, I'll give you the current predicted team. This is Gazetta's. Maignan, Emerson, Chow Pavlovic staying at the centre backs. Teo in at left back because his suspension doesn't apply in Europe. Fofana Reijnders, Chukwueze right, Leao left, Pulisic down the middle, Morata up front. That should be the team for me.
Why no Tomori?
Don't know. I mean, you stick with the centre backs that kept you a clean sheet in the last game, maybe.
I feel like more
would agree.
I don't know. Just maybe. I guess if Pavlovic is perfectly fine. I was just thinking with the cut, maybe he might be a little dizzy, something like that. But yeah, I mean, the medical staff will know. So if he's good, then he's good, I guess. But yeah, I'm surprised the kid Tomori's not in. Everything else adds up. Did you say Chukwueze and Pulisic down the middle? Yeah, that makes sense with Tammy out. So
we can pick an attacking team for this game too. I don't think we have to worry about balance in quite the same way we do at the Bernabeu, for example.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this has to be the game. You get the goals, you get the goal difference and the points, and
this should
bang
be
them and move on.
For me, and my official prediction, put the stamp on it, 3-0. Leao's going to score. I think Morata finally bags, and then probably, I don't know, someone from deep like Reijnders or
No, Teo's going to score because he had a shitty game, and that's what he always does.
That's why I keep saying Leao every week.
It'll happen at some point, right? Law of averages. I toyed with putting 3-0 or 3-1 in the preview that I'm writing. I put 3-1. I don't really know why. I just feel wrong predicting a clean sheet for us at the moment, but I feel like it could be 5-0 or something if things go right for us. I think Leao and Teo both score, and I think they do some celebration together, and we're all reading Gazetta articles about the best left side in Europe again. But I think Morata scores too. I'll go 3-0.
I don't see a world where Pulisic doesn't score, so I'm going to say 3-0 as well, but Pulisic and Teo are going to get on the score sheet.
It's a good world to live in.
I think what's a good world to live in is one where Christian Pulisic has become the first player in Europe's top 5 leagues to have a goal contribution in 7 straight games.
That's
and
kind
also
of
a world
unreal.
where, since the start of last season, only Cole Palmer has been involved in more goals than Pulisic among midfielders in the top 5 European leagues. Now,
That's no longer accurate.
Why? Who's taking over?
Lautaro.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, he jumped
Well, he
over.
only had one.
Yeah,
So
but
you said
Lautaro and
tied. midfielder.
Oh, and you know what? You're right. And
He's
because
not a
Pulisic
midfielder.
also had the assist in the last game. So, yeah, they're still tied. Never mind.
He's not a
Lautaro's-
midfielder.
Lautaro's not a midfielder.
Yeah.
Was the stat only midfielders?
Yeah, it says so.
Oh, I
but
missed
what
that
they
part.
count
He's a player.
for people who kick off about this, it really is simple. They count midfielders as anything that isn't a striker. So wingers are included in that because, you know, whether they're right midfielder or right wing or whatever, they're counted in it. And that's why Palmer's in it as well, even though he clearly plays as part of the forward group. But yeah, hashtag stats. Let's move
Ballon d'Or,
on.
man.
Maddie, did you give a
Unbelievable.
prediction?
Yeah, he did.
3-0.
Right, good. Yeah, cool. 3 points all the way
Bologna boys.
onto Bologna. Tough to know what we're going to do with the team for this one because we might rotate given the Bruges game on Tuesday night. How are Bologna doing this season? I'm going to say that they're about 12th. I feel like they
They
haven't
are
done
13th.
13th. Oof, yeah. Right. So what I said was before this season when I was doing predictions, I think I put them in 6th because I didn't think that they were going to have as big a drop off as people predicted. They went from Motta to Italiano, who, he's a front foot coach. I thought they were still going to play good football. They obviously lost Xerxes, who went to United, and they lost Calafiore, who went to Arsenal. So those 2 pretty big players that had gone. And a lot of the signings that they made were in and around the 5-10 million range. So they didn't push the boat out with the money, but that's not particularly Bologna's style anyway. Their biggest signing was Dalinga from Toulouse for 15 mil. Then they signed Cambiaghi from Atalanta for 10. Holm, Ehrlich for 7 mil, Freuler for 4.5 mil. It wasn't a particularly impressive summer window, and I banked on them when we did that predictions video because it was before the window would shut. I banked on them spending some of that money, and they didn't. So I think that's exactly why we're looking at them being down in 13th place at the moment. They've only won 1 game.
They've also only lost 1 league game.
They've drawn 6 of 8. This is a boring ass team, eh?
Yeah, and they're not even good draws. 1-1,
No.
1-1, 2-2 against Como,
2-2.
and that was an exciting game because they equalized on the 91st. That should have been a loss.
Yeah.
And then 0-0 Shakhtar. 1-1 Atalanta is actually interesting.
They should have beaten Atalanta. That was when Samajic scored that goal right at the
90th,
end.
but they also had a red card in there too, so it's not fair.
0-0 with Parma at home.
Genoa
down
again
to
came
10.
back in the 85th minute. It's actually
Yeah.
pretty crazy. And they had the Champions League tomorrow as well against Aston Villa. How did I not remember they were in the Champions League? So yeah, they're gonna be rough.
They are above us in the Champions League table though because they got a point against Shakhtar Donetsk. Good lads. They actually, yeah, they were okay. I watched that game actually. That one for some reason it was on while I was in Malta, and it was an incredibly boring game. And then they lost 2-0 at Anfield too. Yeah, so some teething problems under Italiano. It'd be fair to say that they've won 1 game all season, and they
I don't think he survives this run.
And
I think he'll be out before the next round of Champions League. I think they lose to us and they lose to Villa, and then he's probably out.
Oh, yeah, so they play Villa tomorrow night, which is obviously a difficult one. Then they got back-to-back Champions League home games against Monaco and Lille. and Benfica, Dortmund, Sporting. I mean, they're not going through in the Champions League, I don't think. So I think the priority has to be to try and somehow get back into the European positions in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think the pressure will be on. But weirdly, are Bologna the level of club that could bin him off and turn to like Sarri? You know?
Yeah,
Might
but I
he be
don't think
tempted or
Sarri is
not?
the guy who would take it. I don't think he
No.
would. That team just doesn't really scream what it once was. I think the reason it was so shocking last season is because of the team that they are. If they had any parts that like were really top level, like obviously Xerxes was the guy, now he's gone. They didn't do a good job of replacing him. So I just don't see a world where Bologna's maintaining last year's level. I don't remember where I put him in my preview, but I think I did have a big drop off on them. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, you did. You did. I remember that you did. I'll have a look.
Yeah.
While
Also, I just
you give a
realized that we
prediction.
play Napoli after Bologna, and I can't believe it's on a Tuesday, and it's that one weird 1 week period where Europe's done daylight saving and the US hasn't. So that game kicks off at 3:45 in the afternoon on
That
a fucking
sucks.
Tuesday, which means I'm going to stay at
So
the
bad.
office late so I can watch the end of the game. So
Yeah, that is shite.
already
I'm not gonna
annoying.
lie.
What time do you normally leave the office?
5?
The game's at noon.
No, you didn't listen at all. That's okay.
Oh,
The one that
I'm
we-
sorry. We're looking at Bologna.
Yeah. You didn't have Bologna in your top 7, so you're looking good there. I had put them 7th, not 6th, 7th. Maddie, you
We're
didn't.
missing.
You
No,
were
I
missing.
have one in there.
Yeah, you were missing. No, I'm looking at the article and I didn't add them.
Oh,
Or
good thing
did
I did them.
Yeah. I don't know if you sent me them. Anyway, we'll solve that later on. We can add them in retrospectively so you look like you knew exactly what you were talking about.
With the exact table in May.
Yeah, we're going to potentially do some rotation then for that Bologna game, I think, given that we got Napoli a few days after, got to manage workloads, hopefully no injuries because, you got Gabbia out with a muscle problem at the moment. Tammy's probably going to miss a couple of weeks, I think, with that shoulder. But it won't be a long-term absence, I wouldn't have thought, unless it reveals more damage with the scan. Calabria is expected to come back for the Bologna game, and Emerson has started like a lot of games in a row. So I just wonder if there might be the temptation to give him a run out against Bologna. Of course, Teo will have to serve suspension, and so will Reijnders.
Which is honestly best case scenario because then we have Napoli.
Yeah, and then get them back in. I think it's a simple case of Musa comes in alongside Fofana again.
Yeah.
They might switch roles though, because like Fofana looks pretty good as a box-to-box player, getting the ball forward. He rouletted somebody in the Udinese game, which was madness. So maybe Musa will be like the anchor, and then Fofana can push forward a little bit more because he don't mind a shot from distance either. And then I guess it's going to be Terracciano again to replace Teo, just based on what he's done so far.
Jimenez playing at all?
Well, he just got a red card for the Futuro yesterday.
Yeah,
That's Toure. And
yeah.
Bartolozzi scored, so that was an interesting left background.
Yeah. They're shit, by the way. Futuro, rock bottom.
Awful.
I said though, when we were doing the thing on the project, I said we need to be prepared for them to be shite because they're like 17 and 18-year-old kids coming up against 30-year-old blokes who've played in the top flight, and this is their final hurrah,
Well, and I feel like we should have went for a manager also that kind of knows how to handle those kids in a situation like that, and not a guy who'd never coached at the professional level before, like we did. But anyways, that's a different podcast.
Yeah, well, no, you're right, actually, and maybe we'll do that as the thing this week. Like, what the fuck is going wrong with the Futuro? Because we're at risk of this project's been months in the making, and we're at risk of pissing it away in season 1, at least with a relegation, which would not be very good.
Well, we could actually buy our way out of relegation if another team goes under, which is
ridiculous.
Is what we would
do. Yeah. Although there was only one team who didn't register this time around, and we took their spot, so you can't bank on it happening every year, I guess. Meanwhile, Ignacio Abate's Ternana are second in their table with 6 wins from 10 to begin the season. That's the coach we let walk. Okay, right. Prediction Bologna. We'll win this one. We'll win this one 2-1.
I think it's going to be a clean sheet. I'm going to say 2-0. I just don't think Bologna
2-1
have
as
it.
well. We're not keeping 2 clean sheets in a row.
I think we'll keep 3 if you count Champions League.
Also, we're 19th, not 20th.
What are you talking
on
about?
the bottom of Group B of Series C.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're not dead last.
We're not rock bottom then. We'll just
It always get worse.
Can get worse, yeah. Right, what are we on? Oh yeah, questions. Let's move on. Got a couple from the old
2 or 3 of these baddies.
Yeah, got a couple from the Discord chat. JT Physio, do you think if Teo and Leao started, we'd have won against Udinese? Well, Teo couldn't have started. We would have thrown the game by forfeit. We won, yeah. Also, we would have forfeited the game if we'd have started Teo because he's not eligible to play. Look, and then the follow-up question from Marco Villar is basically the point encapsulated. He says there's a fine line between putting the team first and upsetting your star players, namely Leao. Do you think Fonseca is overstepping or getting it right?
No, I don't think he's overstepping. Right. I would assume that there was some sort of conversation leading up to that moment, right? Like, I don't think Rafa was surprised on match day that he wasn't starting. He might have been surprised on match day that he didn't get a single minute, but I think that's an easy one to justify given the red card and then the Tammy injury. It's like, look, we ran out of possible substitutions. Sorry, like resting you for Champions League because this is the game that you know is the bogey team and you probably don't want to rest, but also, Champions League is far more important than 3 points this round of the season against Udinese. You could get those back. You can't get back the Champions League points. So
no,
I don't think he did anything wrong. And I'm sure Rafa actually sees that. He might have been irritated and annoyed. And like, as a good player, when you're watching your teammates struggle, you're thinking, I could do something here. I can make a difference. Like, yeah, he's having those thoughts, as is every single player on the bench. The worst of the worst is having that thought too. They're all professional athletes. Like, they're all thinking, I could be the difference maker in this situation. I wish I was on. Put me in, coach. Put me in. Like, that's a thing that happens. But also, not playing is a thing that happens at every level. Ronaldo's been benched. Messi's been benched. Like, it happens. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure Rafa's just fine.
I agree.
Might he appreciate the rest as well? Like the stuff that I said earlier wasn't made up. Like, I don't think he was 100% coming into this from a condition point of view. He started a lot of games. He's played a lot of football. He's a winger who relies on his explosive athleticism. So, you got to have a near full tank to be able to utilize that every game. And what's the point in having depth? And I say depth because we do. Yeah, I say depth because we do have it in those forward positions. Okafor can play left wing. We have got 2 strikers now who we can. Well, one of them's just popped his shoulder, but whatever. We have got 2 right wingers, and I just think I think it's all absolutely fine. I think look, with the way things were going into the international break, the way the season has been so far, it was 3 wins in 9 before that last game. The media are going to latch on to anything they can in order to throw shit at us, and they did. They took the comments and they turned it into something that it wasn't. I think they took the benching and attached that to the comments thing that was never an issue, and it all snowballed into this Leao saga that never really existed to begin with. And hopefully he's better for the rest. Gets a goal Tuesday. It'll all be forgotten about if he's the decisive man against Napoli, for example, a week on Tuesday. Yeah. That's the nature of football. But what I like this from Fonseca. I like it. I thought his pre-match press conference was interesting, to say the least. He got like expletive, saying he doesn't give a shit about the name on the name of the player. He'll do what he thinks is right for the team. Nobody's bigger than the team. And he said that he went into the international break angry, but he was still angry. So when the internationals returned on the Thursday and he had the entire squad present, he still got them in to talk about what happened in the Fiorentina game, the errors that were made, from a tactical standpoint, but also the incidents that we've already spoken about with the penalty and Teo's red and just not managing the game well. And I think it's important that he's instilling this, like, we have standards here type thing. You know,
Mhm.
you can't drop below it from a professionalism standpoint, from an effort standpoint, because he also picked out the fact that our running numbers against Fiorentina were not good. We had that in our tactical analysis as well. They were way down. So is it a sign of fatigue, or are the players just not putting a shift in like they should? And I kind of like this hardline approach, because I feel like some players, let me say the squad in general, have been babied for too long, and they need to know that we can't be as inconsistent as we have been. You know, you can't win 3 in a row, and then when the big game comes around, you shit the bed, and then you lose the one after that as well because there's a knock on. Next thing, it's the coach who's on the chopping block. Like, we're all fed up with that same repetitive cycle. So I think Fonseca's trying to break it by professing how important unity is and everybody doing their job, basically. Just do your job and we won't have any problems. So I like it. And I don't think there's an issue with Leao. And I think if the wins follow, if the performances and the wins follow, because we've got to see an improvement in the style of play as well, I think we need to see growth from that point of view. Then I think the players will all collectively buy into it as well. Now, I don't think the players should be able to choose whether to buy into a coach. You know, you're paid millions per year.
Yeah.
You know, you're not paid millions per year to decide whether you want to agree with the coach. You will fucking listen to him. But we know how it works. These, as Ahmed put it on Twitter, these are human beings, and you know, there's relationships and things. But I do think that something like the Udinese game could just light a rocket and away we go. But I'll believe it when I see it. Like, this team is at the point of having to earn the trust back from the fans. Like, the Scudetto credit and everything has run out. And I think credit's run out for some of the star players as well, because they're fed up with the pageantry. We need a good run, and we need to win a couple of big games, I think, before people are like, right, we've turned a corner mentally. Like, psychologically is the most important thing. Final question. Nintendo Nino, 80 mil comes in for Leao in January. Are you accepting? Tough in January, innit? If it's next summer, yep. But not January.
January's tough because who do you bring in? You know, do you not bring anyone in? Do you trust Okafor and you buff up the other positions? Do you find that long-term starting striker with that? You know, probably not in January. I think January is the big caveat to the whole question. So I think I'd have to. You definitely want to evaluate it. It just depends on what else is out there in January.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to flip all that back into it. Otherwise, you might as well keep the guy who knows the system. You know, if you spend 80 mil on one player, it's like, well, what was the point? You just got rid of your best to get another guy that might be the best. But over the summer, you could definitely think about it and make those changes and reinforce some other problem spots. So the summer is good.
Yeah. I don't want to give a boring answer, but there would be like a process to it if it were in January or next summer, where the offer has to come in and then you have to speak to Leao and see where his head is at. You know, do you want to go to PSG or whatever? Like, are you ready for something different? If he says yes, then I think you say, okay, but we're going to look into getting an alternate, a replacement lined up first. You know, you have to do that deal. I think you have to do the deal for the replacement before you sell him, weirdly, because everybody knows you're the team with 80 mil to spend. You know,
exactly.
if you do that first. Who might come in to replace him? Don't know. Not my job. Not my job to find him. But I do think there are talented wingers out there that you could go and spend on. Whether they would have the same as Leao in everything that he brings, I don't know. I think he'll be tough to replace. Just as I think we got to be honest and say Teo would be tough to replace too. For as much as they've been up and down, you know, when they're on it, they're incredible. So I think there'll be some tough decisions to make, especially if Teo doesn't renew, because there's talk of Teo and Leao's future being like intertwined. You know, if one goes, then the other might think, okay, well, my time to go now as well. And I think the club would have a hard job selling both in one summer in terms of how that would look to the fans. So interesting months to come.
But we could have a record profit if we do that. We all know what's more important.
Jerry sees. We see a big gap on the left side. Jerry sees 150 mil coming into his pocket. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Glad that we could talk about a win. Let's hope we can talk about 2 more next week. We're back later this week with a bonus ep, and I think I like the idea of doing a little futuro thing. What the hell's going wrong over there? In the meantime, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
Yep. Just go back to that last question. Osimhen could be a replacement since he's not owned by Napoli anymore, and that'd be easy flip.
He's on loan.
Is he? I thought they bought him.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
I
That
believe he
won't
is on
happen.
loan, actually. Yeah.
It's okay. Ignore me. Thanks for listening.
Osimhen on the
Also,
left.
yeah, AJ, left wing.
I
Osman.
said a striker. Get a main striker. That was the whole point I made during the question, but whatever.
All right,
RLC on
I
the
wasn't
left.
even listening. In the Discord last week, I got a bullshit rating because I couldn't say Fonseca. So JT Physio, I better get a better rating this week.
And you said it perfectly.
I
He's
have
looking
been
at his phone
planning this the
practicing for an
entire
hour.
podcast, and I want to make sure he watches till the end to get it. So
There's even a little bit of Portuguese intonation with it there as well. Fonseca.
I've been practicing in the mirror, man. I don't want to get that bullshit 5. Are you kidding me?
Good, yeah. Yeah, and if you want to join the Discord for all these inside jokes, check out the Substack. Good way to end. Cheers, everyone, for watching. We'll be back next week.
Gol! Ancora Teo! È una meraviglia! Il gol di Teo Hernandez da un'area all'altra! È una meraviglia! Senti il mio cuore!